Good morning, or is it afternoon yet? Happy Earth Day, everybody. Come on, this is amazing. It is with great honor and pleasure that I join you all and all of our friends here to welcome Mayor de Blasio to Hunts Point, and to the South Bronx, to join the world as we celebrate Earth Day and the announcement of One New York. The Point is dedicated to youth development and the cultural and economic revitalization of the Hunts Point section of the South Bronx. We work with our neighbors to celebrate the life and art of our community, an area traditionally defined solely in terms of its poverty, crime rate, poor schools, and substandard housing. We believe strongly that the area's residents and their talents and aspirations are the Point's greatest assets. The South Bronx, like so many communities across the city, has borne the burden of inequitable policies that have resulted in disproportionate health impacts, economic impacts, and quality of life impacts for far too long. Environmental health challenges, such as painfully high asthma rates, coupled with the daily and routine injury of economic injustice, have made life in these communities more fraught with risk and disadvantage than in less burdened neighborhoods. Despite all of these odds, we know that our communities are strong, resourceful, and resilient. We are proud to have a mayor that not only knows this, but has been committed to advancing equity throughout each and every aspect of our city. One NYC is another example of his steadfast commitment to equity. We are in need of an agenda like this that tackles these issues head-on through zero waste, through economic democracy, and through investment in infrastructure that helps instead of harms communities like the Hunts Point Peninsula. Hunts Point Lifelines, our peninsula-wide resiliency plan, and the Sheridan Expressway re-envisioning are just two examples of initiatives that confront inequality by protecting, creating, and sustaining living wage jobs, by promoting industry that does not harm us, and by investing in communities that we can raise our families in without fear of displacement. Without further ado, please join me in extending a boogie down Bronx welcome to our mayor, the Honorable Bill de Blasio. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. And I want to thank everyone at the Point for what you do. I'm going to talk about their great work and this strong and resilient neighborhood in just a moment. But first, I just want to hold up it being the plan of the hour. I want to hold up our One New York plan. This is not just a book. This is a real blueprint for change in this city. This is going to be a game changer in this city. I'm going to talk in a moment about all the people who worked so hard to bring us to this day. But one thing we can say about this administration, we take our plans very, very seriously. We apply them very literally. We keep to our commitments, and this is the blueprint for the future of New York City. So we're very excited about this day, and we're thrilled so many good friends are here to join with us to announce it. Kelly and everyone at the Point, we're here because you epitomize the efforts to create a fairer city, a better city for all residents, for all neighborhood members, a city that really addresses both our environmental challenges and our economic challenges and realizes that we have to do those both at the same time. And in fact, the very process of addressing our environmental challenges is part of how we do address our economic challenges. The process of addressing the sustainability needs of our city is how we also battle inequality. That is the underlying idea behind this plan. And that's what happens every day at the Point. You are fighting to make a neighborhood that often got less than its fair share. You're fighting to make it a better neighborhood. You're fighting to mobilize people, to strengthen the neighborhood, to address the environmental challenges and the economic challenges simultaneously. Let's thank everyone at the Point. Now, we said at the beginning of the administration, literally the first day, the idea was to create one city that rises together. The antidote to the tale of two cities is to work always towards greater unity and fairness. And we have to do that in a lot of ways. What was unacceptable, I felt, was to see the growing divisions just fester. And again, so many people who have fought for economic justice have also fought for environmental justice, because these challenges go hand in hand. So many people in the city have for so long recognized that inequality takes many forms. And the way forward is to create a vision for one city where there's opportunity for all, fairness for all, sustainability for all. That's what animated the work that led to One New York. Now, this title says it all. One NYC, the plan for a strong and just city. The idea here is that our strength derives from our fairness. Our strength derives not just from growth, but growth that creates opportunity and growth that is sustainable. Our strength derives from the notion that we're a city constantly working to stay ahead of the curve in the face of climate change and other challenges. Strength is about everything from economic growth to resiliency and sustainability to economic inclusion. Strength is about a community of people that believe they belong and that they have real opportunity. Justice is about people knowing fairness is there for them. This is what animates this report. And we took the platform of Plan NYC, and it is a very strong and very positive platform, and we built upon it. Plan NYC looked at growth. Plan NYC looked at sustainability. It looked at resiliency. These were crucial issues to address, and it did it very well. But we knew we needed to go farther. We knew we needed to address inequality at the same time. We knew that our vision had to be bolder. It had to be more inclusive of the realities of the lives of our people. And that's what brought us to One NYC. And this plan, for the first time in New York City, makes very clear that we're going to fight income inequality in a very specific and tangible way, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable for getting our people out of poverty. This plan sets a literal numerical goal on how many people we will get out of poverty and how quickly we can do it. Because fighting income inequality means helping so many of our fellow New Yorkers finally be able to make ends meet, finally be able to know they can keep living in their own neighborhood, that they're not going to be forced out, that they're not always going to be underwater economically. So this plan not only says we're going to create an economically fair city, we offer a clear standard for what that means, and we hold ourselves accountable to it. I'm going to go into detail on that in just a moment, but let me just thank the folks who brought us to this day, and I want to thank everyone who's joined with us here today. You're going to hear from a few of my colleagues in just a moment, but let me thank a lot of the folks who made this possible. We asked a lot of folks to help us find this path because this is one of the most ambitious plans, I think, anywhere in the nation for addressing this combination of challenges. Certainly the most ambitious plan in the nation by any city for addressing poverty. So we had a lot of people who were part of this process. I want to particularly thank our first Deputy Mayor, Tony Shorus, who led this process so well with our Director of the Office of Sustainability, Nil de Mesa. I want to thank them. They worked incessantly to bring us to this day. I want to thank Michael Berkowitz, the President of 100 Resilient Cities. I want to thank Judith Enck, the U.S. EPA regional administrators, EPA being such an important partner with the City of New York. We had a Sustainability Advisory Board that offered so much in this process. People put so much time and energy into getting us to this day. I want to thank the co-chairs, Larissa Ortiz from the City Planning Commission, Donovan Richards, the chair of our City Council Environmental Protection Committee, and Dr. Jeffrey Sachs, the director of the Earth Institute at Columbia University. Our steering committee included, of course, our first Deputy Mayor, Tony Shorus, Richard Bury, our Deputy Mayor for Strategic Policy Initiatives, Mindy Tarlow, our Director of Operations. So many people contributed, obviously, including Bill Goldstein, our Senior Advisor for Recovery, Resiliency, and Infrastructure, Carl Weisbrod, the Chair of the Planning Commission, Dan Zerilli, Director of our Office of Recovery and Resiliency, Larry and Angelo, our First Deputy Director of OMB. All were on the front line. We had a lot of meetings to get to this day. A lot of thinking went into literally putting on paper the plan we're going to live by and hold ourselves accountable to. All of them did extraordinary work to get us to this day. And so many of the other commissioners and leaders of this administration who are here today, I want to thank them all. Everyone contributed. Every agency was a part of this process, and they did so with great energy and heart to get us to this day. So thank you to all the commissioners. I also want to thank the many, many community leaders, faith leaders, environmentalists, advocates, and labor leaders who helped us build out this vision. We're joined by George Miranda, President of Teamsters Joint Council 16. I want to particularly thank him for his efforts to bring us to this day. Thank you very much to all. Let's give them all a round of applause. Now, I mentioned the foundation that was laid by Plan NYC. Plan NYC was a groundbreaking effort to define our future in a very public and transparent way and to set goals in place related particularly to environmental sustainability. I commend Michael Bloomberg for what he achieved with Plan NYC. It was pivotal for the future of this city that a plan being put in place that really changed the way we think about our future. And Mayor Bloomberg did something of lasting importance and I think international importance with the creation of Plan NYC. The idea that we felt throughout this is if you believe something's a good model, make it stronger, build upon it, make it even bolder. And that's what we've done. Some of the extraordinary commitments made in the original Plan NYC are being kept. They were kept by the previous mayor, previous administration. We're continuing to keep those commitments. Things like the 1 million trees that are being planted across the city, the reduction of carbon emissions, which continues every day, the composting initiative. So much of what we saw in Plan NYC, it was crucial to continue and to build out. But we knew we had to go farther. We knew we had to bring the challenge of inequality into this plan. Someone asked me the other day, when I said inequality is the crisis of our times, I said, well, wait a minute, how do you juxtapose it with climate change? Isn't climate change the crisis of our times? I said, I have no lack of recognition of how desperate the situation is in terms of our climate, which is why this city committed to 80 by 50, which is why you're going to see in One NYC a host of initiatives to go at the challenge of climate change. I said the difference between climate change and income inequality is, thank God there are efforts happening finally to address climate change. We saw it at the UN summit in September. We see it in the new agreement between the United States and China. We see it in some actions of cities and states around the country. We certainly see it here. The difference is income inequality, which is growing worse all the time and is threatening the very cohesion and stability of our society in this city and in this whole country, is going fundamentally unaddressed. And that's why it is so crucial to integrate the fight against income inequality into all we do. So for the very first time, New York City will commit to reducing income inequality and reducing poverty and lifting people out of poverty. We pledge to move 800,000 people out of poverty by the year 2025. That is nearly 10% of the population of this city. Now struggling at the poverty level or near the poverty level, struggling to make ends meet. We're going to move 800,000 people out of poverty. We're going to change the reality of this city and make it once again a place for everybody. That's what we're committed to, and I want to give you a sense of that scale. 800,000 people is the size of the entire population of the booming city of Charlotte, North Carolina. That is a sense of how ambitious and how necessary this plan is. The fact that there are 800,000 people that we have to reach gives you a sense of just how tough the situation is for so many New Yorkers. But we're committed to reaching that goal. And it's as simple as this. You cannot have a successful city if more and more people are falling behind. You cannot have a successful city if people feel they don't have an economic future. Just as Plan NYC literally asked the question, what would a successful city look like in the future in terms of sustainability, resiliency, economic growth? We ask all those questions, but one more. What will a city look like in the future in terms of economic inclusion? And if there isn't growing economic inclusion, how can that city be strong? How can it be successful? How can it be a global leader? How can it compete in an ever more globalized world? I believe fundamentally, you can't have environmental sustainability without economic sustainability, nor can you have economic sustainability without environmental sustainability. One alone doesn't build a strong future. We know that if we only had environmental sustainability and ended up with a gilded city only for the most wealthy, it would no longer be New York. And equally, if we had a city filled with economic opportunity and inclusion, but it was not environmentally viable and sustainable, it wouldn't work. So we've got to bring these two pieces together. Here in Hunts Point, as I said, residents for a long time have been on the short end of the stick of our economic reality. Median income less than $26,000. $26,000. Try living on $26,000 or less, family of four in New York City. And just think about the fact that, as I've said many times, 46% of our city at or near the poverty level. That is a crisis that cannot go unaddressed. Here at the Point, I think one of the things I deeply appreciate about the Point is it is already playing out this vision here in this neighborhood. The things we're talking about, bringing these strands together, it's happening right here in Hunts Point right now. If you want to find out what it looks like to challenge environmental problems and economic problems simultaneously, just talk to the folks at the Point, because they're doing it. And they never lose sight of the fact that they have to address the needs of their entire community. You can't have people be strong in one way and weak in another and be a successful community. Here at the Point, they're addressing the whole community, the whole family. That concept pervades One NYC. We target not only the economic challenges, the sustainability challenges, we target things like chronic disease. We target the challenge of violence. We target the challenge of infant mortality. And we've made clear we're going to reduce premature death in this city. A host of measures, because we're losing people we don't need to lose, and we're going to do something about it. Now, people will say, rightfully, well, this plan seems to include some things that you know you can do yourselves as a city with other things that will require action by the state government or the federal government or the MTA or other entities. That's true. That's true, because what we set out to do was show the people of the city what would take us where we need to go. Rally the people of our city around a shared vision. And I'm someone who believes what happens at different levels of government, what happens in the political process and the legislative process, it's never static. It's ever changing. It changes with the people. If you show the people a vision and the people believe in that vision, a lot of things can change in places like Albany and Washington. So we're showing the vision of what it's actually going to take to make this a city for all, and one that can go the distance. The fight against inequality, boil that down to taking people out of poverty, rising them up. Boil it down to that central goal. Fewer and fewer and fewer people in poverty. That's a strong and just society. We will go to Albany, and we'll bring the people in New York City with us to change the minimum wage so it can actually reach the needs of the people. We need to get to a $13 minimum wage next year, which by 2019 will be a $15 minimum wage. That is how we will rise people out of poverty. If we actually give them the wages, the benefits, the opportunities they deserve. Now, simultaneously, all the other pieces of our plan affect this outcome. When it comes to fighting poverty, when it comes to fighting income inequality, our affordable housing plan, addressing the number one expense in the lives of New Yorkers. Our pre-K and after-school plans, taking huge expenses out of the budgets of working parents, also opening the door to much greater opportunity for their children in the future. Everything we're doing to increase access to mass transit, increase access to broadband, and all the economic opportunity that comes with that. Our municipal ID program, opening opportunity for so many people in this city. Our workforce development programs, training people for the actual jobs of today and tomorrow. Everything we're doing aims at the goal of creating a city where people can actually succeed economically. All these pieces go together. And we're looking far ahead because it is a more complicated world where the questions of both environmental sustainability and economic sustainability require not just looking 5 years or 10 years ahead, but decades ahead. It's a globalized world. It's a competitive world. If we are going to be a global leader, if we're going to be all that New York City was meant to be, we have to plan decades over the horizon, and that's what you see in One NYC. We are growing. We will have 9 million people. At some point in the next few decades, we will have 9 million people. We're already at 8.5 million, which is the largest population we have ever had in the history of New York City. That's why you see in our plan policies that will add, by 2040, 500,000 units of housing of all types, because we need 500,000 units of housing to be the city we were meant to be. We, in this plan, project a city with 5 million jobs because we need to grow in that direction to be the city we can be. We believe all these pieces fit together. And we understand that we're not up against just the globalized economy and the competition from other cities and countries around the world. We're also up against a very, very different environmental reality. We understand climate change because we've lived it here in New York City. We understand extreme weather because it visited us in the form of Sandy, the worst natural disaster in the history of New York City. We understand that climate change is an existential threat to this city and this earth. That's why you see in this plan not only the bold commitments we've made before, but we're adding others. We need that for our people. But we need that because New York City has to help lead the way for the rest of the nation and the rest of the globe. We have to show what it looks like to actually take on climate change head on. We started with a commitment to cut greenhouse gases 80% by 2050. 80% by 2050, making us the largest city in the world to take on that commitment. And that includes a focus especially on our buildings, but also on creating more transit options, reducing solid waste, improving our electrical grid, a whole host of details you'll see in this plan. But then we've added to it. And there's no lack of boldness in these choices we've made. Zero waste for our landfills. This is an extraordinary commitment and a necessary one, and one that we need to see emulated in other places. We're going to constantly drive down the amount of waste we create through composting, through better recycling. We're going to constantly drive that down to the point that nothing goes from New York City to a landfill in the future. It'll be a hard effort. It's going to take a lot of resources. It's going to take a lot of public education. It's going to take a lot of community organizing. But this is the way of the future if we're going to save our Earth. And the third point, we are committed by 2030 to having the best air quality of any city in this nation. We're well on our way, but by 2030 we will have the best air quality of any city in this nation. For those of you who lived through the 1960s and 70s in New York City, that is a hard vision to believe, but it's one we are committed to, and we've shown, and I give the previous administration a lot of credit, we've shown how much progress we can make in this area, and we're going to do a lot more. So this is not just about metrics. This is not just about dates or programs. This is about human beings. This is about how we're going to change people's lives, transform neighborhoods, uplift families. That's what pervades this plan. If you were a pessimist, you could look at this moment in history You could look at climate change. You could look at income inequality. You could say somehow we've fallen into an intractable rut. There is no way forward. I believe history is pervaded by examples of people recognizing their circumstance and demanding change, and the people leading their leaders. We hope here in New York City that the people know this plan responds to them. We've heard their voices. We've heard their needs. This plan responds to them, and this plan can set a pace for much greater changes far beyond our borders. And it's ever important to remember our only danger is complacency. Our only danger is believing we can't change things, or that somehow we'll muddle through and just keep our policies and our lifestyle the way it is and somehow come out the other side okay. That has never been true. One of the strongest voices at the origins of the modern environmental movement, one of the strongest voices was Rachel Carson. Rachel Carson broke through the complacency half century or more ago, made people think, started a whole chain reaction of a different way of approaching the environmental challenges we face. I want to quote a simple passage from Silent Spring, her masterwork. Quote, "The road we have long been traveling is deceptively easy, a smooth superhighway on which we progress with great speed. But at its end lies disaster." That statement is over a half century old. It's equally true. Here in New York City, we don't buy into the complacency. We don't accept that our only path is to keep going towards that dangerous endpoint. We believe we can change our course. We believe we can change it fundamentally. We can get ourselves to a very different place if we act together with the people of this city. So we will take the road less traveled. We'll challenge ourselves to do things differently, to lead this city to a fairer and brighter future. A few words in Spanish. Nuestro plan de desarrollo sostenible, One NYC, se enfocará por primera vez en reducir la pobreza. Podemos reducir la desigualdad a la vez que construimos una ciudad más fuerte y sostenible. Queremos sacar a 800,000 neoyorquinos de la pobreza en la próxima década. Estamos usando cada recurso que tenemos para construir una Nueva York más fuerte y más justa para los residentes de todos los vecindarios. With that, I welcome our Director, the Office of Sustainability, Nilda Mesa.
Buenos días, damas y caballeros. Good morning, everyone. It's been a real privilege working on this, and I thank our mayor and I thank our phenomenal team, many of whom are standing in the back modestly, way too modestly, but this couldn't have happened without all of you. Sustainability means the actions we take today will not compromise the ability of future generations to meet their needs, nor of our generation. People, the economy, the environment, they all have to work together for a sustainable city. When they do, you find innovation, you find peace. One NYC charts an innovative course for a sustainable and resilient city for all its residents and addresses the profound social, economic, and environmental issues that face us today. Living in Harlem has profoundly shaped how I think of what sustainability means in an urban environment. This is not a place with wide open spaces and, as we used to say, charismatic ungulates who roam them. So what does sustainability mean in a city, and what does it mean in New York City? New York City is a city of hard surfaces, of right angles. The outdoors here is a lot like the indoors. It's under control, it's often shiny, and a little grimy too. As much as we try to control the outdoors the way we control the indoors, we cannot, not even here. It affects us all, from climate to air quality to water to parks. Grass creeps between sidewalk cracks, red-tailed hawks roost on the shoulders of the apostles in the niches of the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, while owls and herons live in our parks, along with the occasional coyote. And our children have asthma from dirty air. Our seniors suffer during heat waves. Our neighborhoods flood. This is a city of neighborhoods from just about every country, dynamic and alive. Our music beats with many rhythms. Our food is made with many spices. One NYC came about in that spirit as a living, breathing plan drawn from many sources with real metrics and real budgets. It was developed with nearly all city agencies collaborating in cross-cutting teams. Let me say that again, nearly all city agencies collaborating in cross-cutting teams with the input of tens of thousands of New Yorkers. We looked at the region, we looked at our neighborhoods, we broke down silos, we got creative, and we own this. We started by saying we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. What do we want to leave for our children? And here it is. We used 4 lenses to look at the future of our city and to make sure we tackled the right problems. We engaged all kinds of New Yorkers to make sure we focused on what matters: a growing population and increasing inequality, an aging infrastructure, urban environmental conditions, climate change, and a clear need for increased collaboration with our regional partners on issues including transportation, housing, and jobs. After hundreds of conversations and research, we found fundamental cross-cutting challenges and opportunities to build on the strong foundation laid out by the Bloomberg administration, who first thought up the notion that New York City could be a sustainable city. So here's an example of what we did. The city's wastewater treatment plants, I'm going to get really geeky on you for a minute, because I can't help it. The city's wastewater treatment plants take the water that we use and treat it for release. They use a lot of energy to do this. They release methane, which is a gas that forms from the decomposition of organic materials. I told you I was going to get geeky. Methane is one of the most potent greenhouse gases. It's about 6 times more potent than CO2, carbon dioxide, which is the most common of the greenhouse gases. But if you capture the methane instead of releasing it, it's a good, clean source of energy. That energy can be used to power the same wastewater treatment plant, and all of a sudden, you've taken something that is waste that can add to global climate change and turned it into a source of clean energy that cleans water. Not only that, if you design the plant so it can take food waste, you get even more energy and move towards zero waste going to landfills. If you have enough of it, you can even make energy for the neighborhood. So this is what we're going to be doing in Hunts Point. When we update the wastewater treatment plant here, we can do it so that we capture the methane, take the food waste from the Hunts Point Food Distribution Center, and not only avoid releasing methane, but use it to power up the plant that treats the water. And in theory, we might even be able to make enough energy to supply the food center. That also means fewer waste trucks hauling through Bronx neighborhoods, cutting our carbon emissions even more, lowering our particulate emissions, which contribute to asthma. We're also going to collaborate on a study to reduce commercial waste, and we have a Hunts Point Clean Trucks program to retrofit diesel trucks that we are expanding. We will be investing in addition in the Hunts Point Food Distribution Center to protect it from storms like Sandy. And on top of all of this, we project to save around $3 million in costs. We save on energy, we save on annual costs, we help our pollution, we lower air pollution, we help the neighborhood. And we can do this at other wastewater treatment plants in the city. In fact, we're starting at the North River wastewater treatment plant. We've set ourselves the goal that all of our wastewater treatment plants will be net energy positive by 2030. One NYC represents a unified, innovative vision for a sustainable, resilient, and equitable city and charts the path for collectively achieving this goal. So let's get going.
Nilda Mesa, you are nerdy, but you're lovable. I actually thought your techno briefing there made sense. So we thank you for defining all your terms, but most especially the heart that you brought to this process and the vision of where we can go, which is very exciting to hear it played out in just one neighborhood, what it can mean for people's lives. Now, someone who works on these issues every day as chair of the City Council Environmental Protection Committee and served as co-chair of our 1NYC Advisory Board, Councilmember Donovan Richards.
I'm going to try not to get as nerdy as Nilda. But it is an honor to be here, and today I am proud to stand with Mayor de Blasio, Tony Shorris, Bill Goldstein, and I know that we've expanded paid sick days, but we should give environmental days off to Nilda Mesa for all the hard work she's done. So one. This is a lobbying for a new sort of day. And also want to say thank you to all my fellow co-chairs and all those who served on the advisory task force meetings. And of course, we dreadingly had to be up like 7 o'clock in the morning to get to those meetings, but I am very happy that we all were able to make it. But I am happy to be here to announce a plan for New York City that unites us as one New York. In October of 2012, when Sandy's wrath devastated our coastline, it did not discriminate at all. In actuality, Sandy is what we consider an equal opportunity giver. Sandy didn't care about your zip code, religion, socioeconomic status, or race when she arrived on that fatal night, leaving everyday New Yorkers' lives turned upside down. Although she didn't discriminate, she shined a bright light on the plight of communities from the Rockaways that I represent to parts of Staten Island that even before Sandy were considered the poster child of inequality in this city. And with the emerging threat of sea level rise and temperature rise, these environmental justice communities will feel the biggest brunt of the climate change crisis. This is why the plan being released today is so critical. We cannot address climate change without addressing the inequality crisis that this city is facing. For far too long, we have not been one New York. When neighborhoods from East Harlem, South Bronx, and the Rockaways have the worst air quality and highest asthma rates in this city, we aren't acting as one New York. When our elders in Southeast Queens have to clean out their basements at the slightest rain, we aren't acting as one New York. When our public housing residents don't have access to good green jobs, we aren't one New York. And when New Yorkers can't afford to live in the city that they love, we aren't one New York. But today, I'm happy to stand with a group of individuals who believe we can achieve the impossible and that all New Yorkers deserve a fair shot at the American dream. Today's plans being laid out and initiatives will put us on the path of becoming one city, from expanding workforce development opportunities to underemployed neighborhoods, to upgrading our transit and green infrastructure, and improving air quality and food access in zip codes where every disparity you can imagine exists, like the one we stand in today. Today, we are finally saying to those who are disenfranchised that we have not forgotten about them. Also, and as I begin to close, I would like to quickly touch on how wasteful we have become as New Yorkers. New York City's recycling rate can be much better than it is. And there are thousands of buildings across this city who burn their lights across our skyline all night long wastefully. We must learn to become more efficient and use our resources wisely, and today's plan puts us on a path of net zero waste and doing something that won't cost this city any money. That is just simply turning off the lights when we aren't using them. And my father was so cheap that he used to make us unplug the clock at night because he said you can't tell time in your sleep. It's a Chris Rock joke, actually, but it is true. He did turn off the heat, though. I do want to say that. I leave you all with a quote Yeah, because he said you don't know if you're hot or cold when you sleep. That's unbelievable. But I leave you all with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on this Earth Day. It really boils down to this, that all life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one destiny affects all indirectly. Thank you. Now let's get to work and achieve these goals. God bless you all. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want you to know that I think my children have had a similar experience to you. Charlene is the person in our household who tells everyone every night, turn out all those lights. Why are you leaving on those lights? Turn out those lights before you go to school. Why are those lights on? I am the person that goes and makes sure everyone has recycled. And if they put something in the wrong bin, I make them put it in the right bin. So, and you turned out well. So this makes me feel good about where our children are going. In One NYC, we talk about a variety of very bold goals. And as Chair Richards said, some of those are about what our people need to do that aren't about money, and some of those end up, as Neil DeMesa said, some of those save money and are very, very efficient. Some of those also cost money. I know you may have questions, our friends in the media may have questions on that, and I will remind you we have our executive budget coming out that will answer a lot of those questions on May 7. But clearly, to achieve such bold goals, we do need to think very carefully and apply our city resources in this direction so we can get to these goals on time. To do that, we're going to need our friends in the City Council, and that begins with the chair of the Finance Committee, the City Council, and she has been a great voice for not only fighting inequality, but for environmental justice. Chair Julissa Ferreras.
Thank you and good afternoon. I just want to say that we are very excited in the Council to be able to enforce a lot of these plans, but also support them. And we understand firsthand through this budget process, I'm really excited to hear that all of it is going to be in the executive budget. All of it. Yes. But understanding that...
all will be revealed.
Yes, all will be revealed.
In due time.
Great. That our mayor and this administration is really thinking about the families that I represent in Corona, but also the families in all walks of life in all of New York City is quite an amazing achievement, and I understand that as a city council, we also have to embrace this and ensure that your priorities are one that you're able to attain. One NYC is a holistic sustainability plan for the environment, for housing, for jobs, for the people. This administration recognized that climate change and pollution negatively impacts low-income families the most, and in order to combat these elements permanently, we must combat economic inequality as well. So as a Latina from Corona, I understand firsthand that we need to empower our communities and give them all this information, because this is not only for New Yorkers, but it is most successful when New Yorkers embrace it. One NYC es un plan de sostenibilidad integral para estabilizar el medio ambiente, la vivienda, el empleo y para cada individuo. Esta administración reconoce que el cambio del clima y la contaminación en sus mayorías de las comunidades de bajos recursos es más afectada. Es por eso que debemos luchar contra la desigualdad económica. Así lograremos sostenibilidad permanente para todos. De nuevo, gracias, nuestro alcalde.
Muchas gracias. I'd also like to note you may be seeing the last public appearance by Julissa Ferreras as a single woman, as she gets married later this week. So, big moment for the city. Finally, I'd like to introduce Michael Berkowitz, and this is an important part of what we're doing. Michael is the president of 100 Resilient Cities, and 100 Resilient Cities has been an invaluable partner in helping us build this vision. By the way, there's a good thing happening in this nation, in this world, that so many cities are sharing the ideas that work, are inspiring each other, are pushing each other because we are all in this together. And the idea of 100 resilient cities to create a network where there's intense devotion to these ideas and a good sense of accountability, all cities holding each other's feet to the fire to get us where we need to go. This, to me, is an exciting piece. Just as I said, the people have to lead their leaders. The local level, we're seeing it all over the world. The local level is leading national policy in so many instances around the globe. And so much of what we are doing today has been really typified and brought together by the efforts of 100 Resilient Cities. Let's welcome Michael Berkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as the mayor said, I'm Michael Berkowitz. I'm the president of 100 Resilient Cities. It's the Rockefeller Foundation's $150 million commitment to building urban resilience worldwide. And it's a privilege to be here on such an important day for New York, but also with such a distinguished group of leaders. 100 Resilient Cities was launched in 2013, and we're in the midst of choosing 100 cities around the world to work with. With those cities, we provide 4 levels of support. Funding to hire a chief resilience officer, a senior person in city government with the breadth and scope to work across sectors and silos, and really advocate and bring these issues to the fore of every decision the city makes. Second is technical assistance and financial support to create a resilience strategy, a holistic look at what the risks and opportunities and really what some initiatives are to address those, as you see in One NYC. The third is access to a platform of services and resources, best practice providers in the private, public, NGO and philanthropic sectors that can help cities execute on those initiatives. And finally, as the mayor mentioned, access to a peer-to-peer network to really share best practice. We chose New York City as part of our first cohort of cities in December of 2013, but actively started working with them in the middle of last year, and it's really through this process that we provided financial and technical support to create this plan. You may know that the Foundation has long been interested in issues of urban planning and resilience, especially here in New York, and it's in this way, as the mayor mentioned, that we contributed to this effort. We are proud to be associated with this plan, and we really like this plan because to truly build resilience, a city must not only consider sustainability and disaster response, but also take into account social and economic issues and can really consider them together. And it's by considering social, economic, and physical issues that the city is able to address not only the challenges it knows about and knows are coming, but the ones that it doesn't. And really, this is a way of saying that making a city stronger overall, as I think this plan proposes, in good times and in bad, makes it better able to withstand all kinds of shocks, whether those are terrorism, natural hazards like Superstorm Sandy, or infrastructure failures that lead to blackouts. This holistic plan, New York has developed interweaving social, and we look at the emphasis on community building and cultural events, economic, and the mayor talked at length about poverty reduction and job growth, and the physical, Nilda talked about coastal protections, puts the city really at the forefront of urban planning worldwide. And I would agree with the mayor, not only that is this plan sort of visionary in this country, but I see plans all over the world and think this integration is really a new benchmark for the way cities can look at their threats and their opportunities. And we see that because every major disaster demonstrates that cities that have more cohesive communities, that have stronger infrastructure, less poverty, more diverse job base, respond and recover better and faster. And these are the aspirations we see reflected in One NYC. We will continue to partner with the city, their Chief Resilience Officer, Bill Goldstein, Nilda, and Dan Zarilli, to prepare for the threats of the 21st century. And we look forward really to sharing these innovations with our network around the world. Thank you very much.
Okay, we are going to do on-topic questions followed by off-topic questions. Let's start with on-topic questions.
I'm just curious, how are you going to pursue codifying some of these anti-poverty methods in either the city charter or the legislation to ensure that they're carried on after your administration?
Well, obviously, the 10-year time frame, which is similar to the 10-year time frame we've laid out in the Affordable Housing Plan, the vast majority of that we hope we're around for. The people have to decide if they want to renew my employment contract. But if they do, we're around for most of that. And I think, as you see with Plan NYC evolving now into One NYC, the work of an administration should live on in many, many ways. If we do this right, if we're continuing to make progress, whoever comes next, I think, will want to continue it. But I emphasize again, this is predicated, my contribution, I hope, to this process was the recognition that changing people's minds, making the people a partner in this process is how you really move forward. So this plan depends on the people. It depends on the people to demand some of the changes we need and to sustain this vision. It's going to go on not just into the administration that follows mine, but many more thereafter. But I think if the people believe, if it becomes a consensus in the city, it will have the support it needs.
Do you have a sense, I mean, you touched on this a little bit, like how much it's going to cost overall, like just to do all of these, or I don't see a lot of...
I'm going to start, and then if Tony Shorse or Nilda Mesa want to chime in, anytime I either don't say enough, leave out something, don't know the answer, they will be available. Again, we're being very explicit here about the fact that the set of decisions made here were in close coordination with our 10-year capital plan, which will be unveiled on May 7th. So we didn't put something in here with a price tag and then not account for it in the budget. It is accounted for, but we're going to unveil it all together so you can see the whole picture. There are some things where we have more to say even after the May 7th budget. There are some pieces that we will be fleshing out further after the budget announcement. There are some ideas that we're going to put forward and some actions we're going to put forward that go beyond even what you're going to see in the plan and what you're going to see in the budget. This is an ongoing effort. But the specific things that cost city money, either capital or expense money, will be accounted for May 7th. Yes.
I don't mean to sound Debbie Downer here, but I mean, somebody might look at this and say, zero waste in New York City, 800,000 people out of poverty by 2025. Those are nice, but it just ain't going to happen.
Well, they're more than nice. They are necessary. They are necessary for our people. Look, I don't blame anyone who's cynical. I represent 8.5 million jaded people. I go around the city trying to find the wide-eyed optimist. I haven't found them yet. But here's what's different. First of all, there's absolute and total commitment at City Hall to achieve these goals. This is what I ran on. This is what I care about. This is what I believe in. This is what the people want me to do. And I think the same is felt over at the City Council. It's a great credit of my colleagues. We push each other to go farther. So when you have the chief executive officer of the city and the legislature of the city speaking with one voice on the need to achieve these goals and willing to put the resources in, a lot can happen. It's clear when it comes to fighting income inequality, we need the state, first of all, to step up on the minimum wage. We are going to put a lot of energy into that. I believe you see all over the country this issue has been engaged in a whole new way just in the last year. 200 cities around the country had demonstrations last week simultaneously calling for the $15 minimum wage. 200 cities in America. You see major corporations deciding to raise their wages because of the pressure they felt from their consumers and their workers. You see minimum wage referenda passing in red states, such as the state of Nebraska I was in last week. Something is changing and changing rapidly because it's become abundantly clear the income inequality crisis is out of control. I believe when we continue our fight in Albany, that Albany will change. It may not happen in the first instance, but I believe it will happen in time for us to achieve these goals. When it comes to the waste reduction, I'm going to have Nilda flesh that out a little bit more for you. But the fact is, that so much of what we're doing wrong now is because we're not showing our people a better way. We're not making it easy for them to recycle. We haven't given them the education and the support to recycle better. We haven't used technology to the extent we could. In fact, the whole system was built on a bankrupt idea that you'd produce a huge amount of waste and you'd go send it to a landfill in another state. That is ludicrous. The whole notion of a society based on constantly increasing waste and then putting it into a truck or a barge or a train and sending it somewhere else, you dig a big hole in the ground, you put the waste in the ground. That is outrageous and it's outdated, and we're not going to be party to it. I would also say this is another area where the people are already moving. Look at how many people, particularly in the generations coming up, want a greener society and are willing to do things differently. I will tell you a simple story. Yes, I used to sin. I used to use that other kind of water bottle. And Kiara would not lay off. It was like, when are you going to stop using that? When are you going to stop using that? When are you going to stop using that? I see you're using that still. When are you going to stop? Why is there a water bottle in the car? I mean, I went on for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and it was finally like, this is the best kind of community organizer. It was like, okay, I'll be environmentally correct if you'll just stop. So the fact is, I do believe generational change is a big part of it. I think the generations coming up because they've lived with extreme weather and they've seen the outrageous waste of the society and they want to do something about it. So I think the table is set for the changes we need to make, but it's also about constantly driving them. What will you add to explain how it works? Please. I'm actually going to drink from this water bottle, as this is my product placement.
Hats off to the sanitation department, actually, for doing a very comprehensive and thoughtful study involving a lot of people on how we get to this path to zero waste to landfills. So some of and it's not going to happen overnight for sure, but some of the strategies that are in there's more detail in the plan, but some of the strategies that are in there are increasing organics collection and also building up the capacity to make sure that, if we pick it up, we have some place to take it, to turn it into either, to take it to the wastewater treatment plant or, take it someplace where it's turned into compost. We have other items in there such as expanding the current programs on textile and electronic waste recycling. We're going to be looking at what to do about plastic bags and working with City Council on that, which we're already doing. And then we're also going to be looking at developing what they call like a Save As You Throw program so that people get rewarded for actually not putting stuff into the trash. So those are kind of the main items. There's more details in the plan, and we can get you more if you'd like.
Non-recyclables, and that includes something you've already started, which is to reduce styrofoam, but it also talks about reducing our dependency on single-use plastic bags. I wonder if you support the city council concept of charging people for plastic bags as a way to get them to carry reusable bags.
So I'd say two things. We, like the city council, we want to find a way to end or greatly reduce the use of plastic bags. We are in negotiation as to the best way to do that. And I think the negotiations are going well, and I think we'll have something to say on that soon. But the good news is, I think there's absolute unity on the fact that just, an endless supply of free plastic bags given out in stores all over the city is not healthy for the environment, and we have to change. But I think we'll have something soon to fill in the blank on that.
Regarding the composting, do you envision any point in the future where New Yorkers will be required to compost?
Look, I think as with everything, and Nilda, you'll jump in after me, the goal, and I want to liken this to what we're doing in the 80 by 50 commitment. We said with the private sector buildings of the city, which are obviously the majority, that we were going to do two things. We were going to lead the way. The city government would, by 2025, retrofit all our buildings. Lead the way, lead by example, put your money where your mouth is. And we said we're going to form a group which is going to work this year and come up with its recommendations this year, including leaders in the private sector, to figure out what commitments they could make voluntarily to achieve similar goals and get us on the 80 by 50 track. I also said, with love and purpose in my heart, if the private sector does not get there, we will mandate it, because it's about the survival of the earth. It's about the survival of the people of our city and their health. Similarly, with composting, I think there's a lot of ways we can teach people, make it simpler, make it better. I think a lot of people, as they experience it, find it is a great thing. But we're going to figure out, if we're not getting where we need to go, what kind of other tools we need. Do you want to add?
So there are a couple of pilot composting collection projects in the city. I think it was this morning, the sanitation department, that they're going to be announced that they're going to be expanding those to more boroughs and more neighborhoods. And so with what we learned from that, we can really flesh out more.
How has this pilot program worked so far, in your opinion? I know there's some buildings near where our broadcast center is located where actually the whole building does it.
I think we're getting a pinch hitter. Are we getting a pinch hitter?
Is the expert? Is Dennis?
Bring him. Dennis. Lineup change. Hold on. Dennis will tell you. And introduce yourself to the crowd.
Hi, I'm Dennis Diggins, First Deputy Director. Diggins, D-I-G-G-I-N-S. And I'm the First Deputy Commissioner for Sanitation.
And speak loud. Hit it.
I will hit it. So your question, I'm sorry, I didn't hear from the back.
How has the pilot program on composting been working out, and are you pleased? Are there things you'd like to change? Where are we now?
We're pleased with it. It's a constant outreach initiative. We have bins that we've distributed to the householders. Again, you're going to get the greatest impact by making it as easy as possible for the residents, and that's what we've done. We're going to be getting back analytical data because we have RFID tags attached to each of the bins, so it tells us what kind of response we're getting. So far, we're seeing good response. Of course, we'd always like to see greater, and again, it's a constant reminder to residents through community boards, through mailings, through advertising that we do to increase that. And that we're trying to make it easier through drop-offs in addition to curbside. There are green markets that are available for folks. There was a question earlier about composting. There are about 255 community compost facilities throughout the city that we look to foster through ourselves as well as through non-for-profit groups and Grow NYC. So we're aggressively looking to foster organics. Organics takes up over 30% of the waste stream. So going back to the question earlier about how do you achieve that zero to landfills, when you're looking at the percentages of each of these commodities that we're looking to separate out, it's achievable. Again, I know the mayor is a big proponent of recycling in his house. And when you really start looking at what your waste stream is in your house, the amount of food scraps that you have, containers that you wouldn't think before to recycle, milk containers, those are all recyclables. The very few items that aren't recyclable in your waste stream, diapers, you've got some household building products aren't, but most of the items in your waste stream are recyclable.
They should be able to recycle?
Sure, it's food scraps, it's soiled paper, primarily food scraps. We also take yard waste and grass clippings.
Okay. Thank you. Well done. Stick around in case there's others. Hold on one sec. Hold on. So I want to first add to the answer, say, here is an example of how people change, not just me. And thank you. I saw you handed these out to people here, I think, or there's a lot of them kicking around at least. But the people change. That used to be this was, who did this? And now everyone's doing it, right? So the point is this is about changing minds, it's changing practices, making things simpler, showing people a way. I think when people recognize 30% of the waste stream is actually those kind of organic items that you can just simply put into a bin, I think people change, and I think they start to put the dots together. One other thing. A lot of people are going to ask, how can I get all the details in this exceptionally heavy report? Well, if you don't want the heavy report version, go to nyc.gov/1NYC. nyc.gov/1NYC. That is ONENYC.
When
Plan NYC came out in 2007, one of the big initiatives behind it was the congestion pricing charge. And I'm wondering if that's something, there's a new plan obviously kicking around, and particularly I ask this because you call for some extraordinary expansion of the MTA system, Utica Avenue and so forth, when the MTA now is facing this tremendous deficit just to get done programs that have been talked about for decades now.
Well, the Utica Avenue proposal is one we think needs to be studied because it's a part of our city that is very underserved by mass transit. And one of the things I talked about a lot in 2013 was trying to rationalize our mass transit system to actually go where the people are. We're obviously an outer borough city, and yet there are huge swaths of the outer boroughs that don't get enough service, and this is an example of a line that might make a lot of sense to expand. We want to study that. That's what we say in there. But I've said many times there is a reckoning that has to happen in terms of where we're going with the MTA, and that's going to involve the state, that's going to involve us, that's going to involve a lot of other partners in the region to make sense of. In this plan, we do not provide all those answers because we don't have them all yet, but it's something we're going to be working on. As I said, you get this plan, you get the capital budget, but then there's going to be a lot happening after the capital budget, including on the question of the MTA. Really, we need to get the stakeholders in the region to come together and agree on a longer-term vision. And everything should be on the table in that discussion. We haven't had a particularly regional approach historically. One of the things we did in the lead up to this plan is we invited county executives from the surrounding counties in New York State, New Jersey, and Connecticut to come and meet with us. We invited in mayors. We wanted to hear what their concerns were and how it connected to what we were doing, because so much of what we're doing affects them and vice versa. So bluntly, I think the future of the MTA is hanging in the balance, but it will be solved with some kind of regional consensus about how we're going to fund it and what each entity's responsibilities are to the MTA. That will not be ready today. That will not be ready by May 7, but it will be something we'll work on intensely over the coming months.
Barge or a truck and sending it out to a landfill is outdated. You don't want to be party to it anymore. The city's, solid waste disposal plan or management plan has the city building these marine transfer stations, one right in your neighborhood. I'm sure you're well acquainted.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. to do just that, to do just what you.
That's what we have to do today.
So do you think that there needs to be a change to the solid waste management?
No. Let me speak to that, and then Nilda or Tony can jump in. I'm talking about where we have to go as a city and where we have to go as a society. We're acknowledging that it's going to take years, in some cases decades, to achieve some of the things we're trying to achieve. We have to deal with our waste here and now. And we have to do it in the smartest way, the most resilient way, the way we think is most environmentally appropriate. So we don't get to snap our fingers and change everything overnight. We have to plan for today and plan for tomorrow simultaneously. I believe in the solid waste plan. I always have. I voted for it originally. I still stand by it. Either one of you want to add? Add? Anything? No. Okay.
So part of the plan, you mentioned trying to make the average New Yorker commute within 45 minutes by public transit. Obviously, the South Shore of Staten Island has the longest commute in the city. Parts of Queens also have long commutes, but South Shore very underserved by public transit. And in the actual One NYC plan, you mentioned the South Shore, but there's no specific mention of an actual plan to bring more transportation services, not just increase railway service, but actual bus routes.
Well, yeah, so let me, first of all, again, some of this is all in good time. We do things in stages around here, and this plan represents our core vision for the future of New York City. It does not address every single project or every single need in detail in the plan. It shows you the direction we're going to go in, the goals we're setting. We're going to flesh a lot of that out in different ways. The 10-year capital plan, the executive budget, and a host of other things we'll do thereafter. We obviously announced the ferry plan separately earlier this year. You'll see lots of other announcements over time. But I think what's important to recognize is that goal is about ensuring everything from the access to transportation to the speed with which the transportation moves. Meaning a lot of people could have a bus or subway nearby, but if it takes a long time to get where it's going, or if the frequency of the service is very slow, That means you have a longer commute. So yes, in some cases, as I mentioned, Utica Avenue, there's going to be places where we have to add new capacity, and other places it's about taking the capacity we have and making it more frequent. We're going to be working on all of those fronts. Some of that we control, some of that can only be done through the MTA. So this is a beginning to give you a framework and a set of goals, and then we fill in the blanks. Please.
I tweeted pieces of the plan, and a couple.
I support you for that. Please continue.
Assemblyman Pirelli and Councilman Blasio were a little concerned that the plan is actually including new stuff for the South Shore, new actual.
I think I just answered it. We're going to continue to flesh it out. This is a beginning.
So, Mr. Mayor, as you know, a bunch of the benchmarks in here are decade out or decades out. Do you think that the voters deserve some benchmarks that are shorter in time so that you can judge whether or not you yourself, as City Hall, your administration, is meeting these goals? As you mentioned, you're going to be up for re-election in 2017, so voters have to decide whether or not to give you another shot here. Should there be some benchmarks here so that people can judge whether or not you met your goals?
Yeah, I think there are already. I think the number of pre-K seats and after-school seats we create, the number of affordable housing units we create, the number of people who get municipal ID, there's lots of measures right now as to how we're doing on immediate pieces of this plan. You'll note when you look at the effort to get people out of poverty, the foundation of that, the first 100,000, if you will, in that concept, is all of the things we're doing right now. How many people are we training who get jobs who didn't used to get jobs, who get higher paying jobs than they could get? How many people, for example, are getting into the tech industry from neighborhoods like this who can get a better paying job? I think we have put forward a series of right now proposals that are very easily measurable. I think the larger goals clearly take time to fully be events. Judge me on how well I do at achieving a different minimum wage. I'm happy to be judged on that standard, even though I don't control it. If people say, hey, you all fought like hell and other people in Albany didn't get it, that's one thing. But we're going to fight like hell. So I think there's a lot of ways to judge. And then, again, this is a beginning. We're going to keep fleshing out these goals. If we didn't want to put ourselves on the hook, we wouldn't have pledged to this goal.
Is there a poverty number by 2017 that we can get, or 2019?
Again, I think I've said it's about the component parts, and we're going to find ways to flesh it out as we go along.
Let me just mention one other thing, Michael, that as we have been doing with the prior Plan NYC, we're going to report each year on each of the over 200 initiatives that are in this book, and we'll report that publicly, and we'll report it on the website. So there'll be accountability each year on each one of these indicators.
Mayor, obviously, the waste stream is handled by the private commercial farming industry, and it's going to be, it mentions a comprehensive study of, I guess, condition and performance of that industry. What's the time frame for that study, and what can the city do, if it needs to rein in some of the excesses of the industry for the farming?
So the study, if it hasn't started yet, is just about to start. It's with NYU. The full scope of it, I don't think we've entirely fleshed out at this point, but we're expecting it to be over the course of the next year.
I haven't had a chance to read the plan yet, obviously, but just...
You haven't read the whole plan? That's obnoxious. I don't even know why I'm taking this question.
So just wondering if you or Mr. Mays can say more about the Save As You Throw plan. What are you committing to?
Save As You Throw.
It's early stages for that. So at this point, we have to study it. We really have to do it in a way that's fair for people. But stay tuned.
But are you committing to it, or are you studying it?
Yeah, committing to it, and then but we have to figure out how to do it in a careful, equitable way.
Right.
What the theory is.
How do you incentivize it?
So the idea is that people get some sort of an incentive. I don't know what that looks like yet, but we don't know what it looks like yet. But they get incentivized to be rewarded for throwing out less. So it could be, some sort of tax thing. It could be some other kind of thing. But there are a couple of different models for this around the country, and we'll be looking at a number of those models.
Let me explain the point just to very clearly. This, again, if right now we're spending a huge amount of money to dispose of waste that we could stop at the point of contact. That's going to save the taxpayers a lot of money if we figure out how to reduce that, let alone the huge environmental impact. if we're going to save that money, there may be ways to create an incentive system around that. But again, as we scrupulously do in this team, when we have a plan and it has specifics, we're going to tell you. Until that day, we feel comfortable saying this is something we aspire to and we believe we can reach. Okay, last call on topic. Yes.
1 million trees, how are we with that?
We're doing well on the 1 million trees. Can you speak to 1 million trees?
We love 1 million trees. So we're actually expected to hit the 1 million tree planted mark at some point this summer, and we'll be continuing.
On topic? On topic.
I know that you clearly recycle and don't use plastic bottles anymore, but do you also do other things? Tell us the kinds of things you do personally. Do you compost? Do you recycle? Do you say put newspapers in one place and bottles in another?
I'm a composting trainer. First of all, for those of you, this is a good day to remind everyone of the de Blasio family composting video. Will you send it back out to the world today? One of the great dramatic presentations of our time. It's riveting. It is riveting. Chiara and Dante showing proper technique for scraping the food scraps off your plate into the compost bin. So, we started at my beloved 442 11th Street, and we started, which that area of the city was one of the earliest to be part of the composting effort. So, yeah, I was an active, energetic composter, and when I found others being less active or energetic, I corrected them. And I do that pretty much wherever I go. I'm known to do that at City Hall. I'm known to do that in office buildings when I'm visiting other people. I just get a little crazy when I see white paper in the trash can. That's one of the things that really gets me. So I try to live it. And at Gracie Mansion, we have all the bins laid out in a row in our kitchen, and everything needs to go in the right bin.
Like, in other words, if you have scraps on your plate, you compost those?
It goes into a composting bin.
And you also do paper?
Paper, metals, glass, plastic, you name it, we do it. And the goal is to have the least go into the trash possible.
And what's your fixation with white paper?
Because it shouldn't be in the trash. It's recyclable. Someone should actually be smart enough to have white paper in a trash can now, and I go do that for you. No, it's just crazy. It's crazy. It's an example of a wasteful society. Why would you take perfectly good paper that can be recycled and put it in a trash can? Who does that? No. Thank you.
I'm always trying to find the recycling on the street, and I'm wondering if that actually gets picked up. I'm talking about not your own personal residential, but if you have a lid from a coffee cup, you can recycle that. You see it filled with all sorts of other...
Yeah. I'm going to start, and Nilda will jump in. It's a challenge, obviously. It's a challenge both in terms of the availability of the bins and also getting people to make the right choices. And so there's a little bit of a double-edged sword if you have the bins and everyone throws the wrong thing in the bin. The mother lode here is to get people to do it in their homes and ultimately in their offices. That's where we're going to have the big impact. But we're going to look at every tool possible to get people into more recycling. Do you want to add?
Actually, I was going to invite Dennis.
Does that actually get recycled?
Come on over, Dennis.
Absolutely. We have over 1,800 public space recycling bins out throughout the city, and we're constantly expanding those. And yes, they are picked up on a regular basis. And we put them alongside refuse, so we are seeing the amount of refuse starting to reduce. So it's reaching the goal that we want.
Okay, last call. Thank you. Last call on topic going once. On topic media call, questions only. On topic going once.
What is the recycling rate in the city?
Right now, it's a little over 15% for residential. For commercial, somewhere around 30%.
And so is one type of recyclable material more challenging than another?
Well, one of the initiatives of zero waste is to single stream recyclables. Again, in the effort to make recycling more easy and more efficient for folks, we're going to combine paper along with metal, glass, and plastic. So that reduces the challenge for us, makes it more efficient for us to collect it, and again, makes it easier for residents to dispose of it and recycle it.
Okay, last call on topic going once. Yes.
I just wanted to follow up on Joshua's question on congestion pricing. Have you read the New York plan? I know you hadn't gotten a chance.
I have not, and I'll say it again. I think it is a productive contribution to the discussion. We are going to sit with all of our partners in the region and talk about a way forward because it has to be dealt with. That will be one of the ideas on the table, but that is a long process, and I can't conclude anything about the way forward until we have those discussions. Going once. On topic, going once. Going twice. Off topic.
This is equal. Mr. Mayor, there's a number of bus drivers who are saying that the way the buses were designed is a flaws in them that creates spots, which makes it difficult to spot pedestrians and crosswalks and things like that. I wonder if you had anybody talking feelings about whether this design of buses to make the drivers safer.
I've heard that point made. I don't have the details or the evidence of the situation, but I can say this much. First of all, our goal with Vision Zero is to avoid pedestrian fatalities and to change the way we do things. And we think we've seen already extraordinary progress just after the first year. The combination of public education, changing speed limits, adding speed cameras, redesigning streets, etc. This work has just begun. As you know, we're training a lot of people who work for the City of New York in how to be safer and better drivers. MTA we do not control, but I think there's an opportunity to work with the MTA to figure out what will help these drivers to do their work more safely. I think that the whole picture should be looked at. The routes that they cover, the schedules they're on, the kind of training they need. If the equipment creates a problem, obviously, what's more important than safety? What's more important than saving people's lives and avoiding horribly injured people? This is what we come here first to do in government. So if it turns out that the design of the buses creates a safety problem, can we fix that with different mirrors or some other adjustments? Do we need something bigger than that? That's a very valid question. But in the here and now, our message to everyone in this city, whether they work for the city, work for MTA, or they're a private individual, is you have to drive safely, you have to yield to pedestrians, you have to respect that there's new laws now that clearly penalize those who do not yield to pedestrians, and we're here to save lives, and everyone has to be a part of that.
What is your position, because I know the police commissioner is not in favor of this, but the city council moving forward on making some of these things like public urination, driving a bike on the sidewalk, those as not arrestable crimes, they would just get summons. What is your position on the council moving forward on this?
I think the council's proposals are certainly worthy of discussion, but I want to emphasize my vision of quality of life policing and my vision related to the broken window strategy is the same as Commissioner Bratton's. We're very much unified on this point. It is a living, breathing idea, which means it changes with the times. You're constantly working to update it. That is why we decided to change our approach to marijuana arrests and greatly reduce marijuana arrests. It's also why we decided to greatly increase police activity related to motorists, and why the Vision Zero approach calls for actually more police enforcement and things like failure to yield. So we're going to be making adjustments all along. Council's put some ideas on the table. We'll certainly look at them. We'll certainly have a conversation. But I think the core concept of addressing quality of life crimes energetically is important to keeping this a safe city. We're very proud of the fact that overall crime continues to go down, and it needs to keep going down. We're very proud of the fact that we're doing a lot to bring police and community together. But the fundamental notion of we have to address quality of life crimes head on is one I believe in.
Would you veto this?
Again, it's a brand new proposal that we'll have a serious conversation with them about. I put it under the rubric of if they're saying, well, broken windows is a living, breathing idea, we're proposing these changes, we'll look at it. But I'm not rushing to judgment because I think we have to be very careful to not undermine the kind of quality of life policing that helps keep crime down.
Your thoughts on the campaign by the so-called American Freedom Defense Initiative, placing ads on the subways and buses,
I don't know those particular ads, so I don't want to comment unduly. Obviously, in this city, we respect all people, all religions, all faiths. It's part of why we added the 2 Eid holidays to our public school calendar. So I can't comment on those particular ads because I haven't seen them, but I would discourage anyone who's trying to be divisive.
Mayor, in the Boston Marathon bombing case, do you believe that the death penalty should be imposed? In general, do you believe that the death penalty should be considered?
No. No, I've opposed the death penalty throughout my life, and I think it's very moving and powerful that the families of the child who was lost, or the family has been very clear that they don't believe the death penalty should be applied. I think the death penalty has been the wrong direction for this country for a long time, and even an act of terrorism as heinous as this, from my point of view, does not merit the death penalty. It merits life in prison.
Just to circle back to Dave's question, on the Southern, I mean, you said you and Brad are unified. Brad was pretty openly against it. I mean, he said he doesn't think it's a good penalty by it. So are you totally against it?
Again, guys, if you want to put words in my mouth, you can keep trying, but I won't let you do it. I said very clearly, there's a proposal on the table. It's brand new. We will review it. But my concern is always to maintain quality of life policing because it has driven down crime. I believe we all want to keep driving down crime while simultaneously bringing police and community together. So we'll look at it. I think it's offered in a very positive spirit. But I also believe Commissioner Bratton knows a lot about driving down crime, and I think his first impulse here is to be careful not to lose some of what's been effective, even though we're constantly going to be looking for ways to update our strategies. Commissioner Bratton and his team came to the conclusion last year very, very squarely that a reduction in marijuana arrests would not have a negative impact on public safety. They believe that thoroughly. I'm sure they'll keep looking at a number of areas, but we're going to take this one step at a time.
Mayor, are you running for president? Do you
No.
to run?
No.
Are you positioning yourself?
No. I've really said no a lot. I'm going to say no again. I am running for re-election as mayor of New York City in 2017. What I'm doing is I'm trying to talk about an issue that I think is a profound national crisis and needs attention and is going absolutely unaddressed right now in Washington. And I'll do anything I can to put the issue of income inequality front and center. I think that's what leaders are supposed to do. I think that mayors of New York City historically are supposed to be spokespeople for the needs of cities around the country, are supposed to talk about what the federal government responsibility should be towards our people. Federal government is doing nothing about income inequality. Nothing. And we have to change that. So I'll raise my voice every place I can, try and influence people all over the country. But I got one job, mayor of New York City, and I'm running for re-election.
Mayor, for the NBC, you have an interest in Latin American politics. What are your thoughts about President Cuomo's trade mission and our human rights issues in Cuba still, also income inequality?
Well, I think it's absolutely right that the governor went on that trade mission because we're finally at a moment where we're going to normalize our relationship with Cuba, something that's a half-century overdue. I found the meeting between President Obama and President Castro very moving because it indicated that old enemies could get over their differences and actually start to work together productively. I remind you, here is a nation as close to Miami as we are to Philadelphia. You know, it's crazy that, or give or take, it's crazy that this division has continued for so long. So I think we have an obligation here to see these two nations come together and figure out a peaceful way forward. I believe that engagement will increase human rights, universal human rights being recognized in Cuba. I believe it will allow for a lot more freedom in Cuba. The more open the situation is, the more chance that Cuba moves forward to a true democracy with true recognition of human rights.
Mr. Mayor, there's a controversy over the height of the Pier House building that's under construction in Brooklyn Bridge Park. Essentially, the residents are complaining that it blocks the view of the Brooklyn Bridge from parts of the promenade. And they say that they were essentially assured that the building wouldn't block the view, but that it went.
I know a lot about Brooklyn Bridge Park from my previous job as a city council member, but I don't know about the Pier House, so we'll get back to you with an answer.
Mayor, you made it very clear that New Yorkers stand to benefit from your talking around the country about income inequality. And I'm wondering, there's been some concern of why not use city funds if that's the case, instead of using the Committee for One New York which takes money obviously from people who are supportive of your agenda, but also at times have business before the city, some good government groups. So if it's very important to the city,
right. Well, I think we think it just sends a clear message that we're going the extra mile, if we can find outside resources, going the extra mile to use them. Everything that comes into the Campaign for One New York is disclosed. It'll be disclosed in July as the next scheduled time. I believe absolutely in disclosure. But we have to promote this agenda, and I want to be clear to the people of the city. I'm going to keep doing it, but if I can find a way to defray the cost, I certainly want to do that as well. Last call off topic, going once.
There's some problems in Harlem with the anti-violence program that you're using as one of the models for your crisis violence management system. Have you heard about some of the issues there with ex-gang members still being involved and some domestic violence abuse that was recently?
I don't. We will get back to you. I'd say the broad concept of gang intervention I believe in very fundamentally. I'm a big fan of David Kennedy and the concept he created about how you stop gang violence before it proliferates, how you involve community members, family members, clergy in that effort. We certainly have had some real success with former gang members getting their life together and then being agents of peace. But I don't know about this specific situation. We will get you a response on that. Last call off topic, going once, going twice. Thank you, everyone. All right.